Yes, hello young people. Today, we'll continue with a new topic. Now we've reached the part about controlling the flow. In other words, we have conditional operators. We'll be looking at these. Right now, we have just one operator available. We'll be talking about these. Over time, we'll also touch on other structures that control the flow. First of all, we need to understand a bit about what flow is or what directing the flow means. That's why I want to give a simple example. Friends. I hope most of you have watched The Matrix. If you remember, there was a choice to be made there, right? Choose a pill you want and determine your path. Or you're at a crossroads and there, the directions you need to go are indicated with arrows. So, if you go this way, you'll end up in Ankara. If you head this way, you'll go to Istanbul. Let's say there's a fork in the road like that. You have to choose one. Friends. It's the same when writing code. When coding, we also have to choose a path. Friends. Of course, not always, but depending on the situation, you need to choose a path. I actually use it to make this choice. The conditional operator's here. So, let's first add a module. Yes, operators. Conditional operators. What are these conditional operators? Like I just mentioned, you're choosing your path. So, you're writing some code. But the code needs to change depending on the situation. It needs to perform a different operation. In situations like this, friends, with the conditional operator, you have to determine your path, friends. So, how will this system we call conditional operators or decision structures work? Here, there will be operators that examine a situation. And we'll also have a decision structure that will direct the flow according to its state, according to its condition. These are: our first decision structure is IF, friends. What is IF exactly? You can say, if what's inside the parentheses is this, do this. If not, do that. For example, let's say integer grade equals. Let's say 60. The student's grade is 60. We're going to say, if the student's grade, let's write it like this. If the student's overall grade is less than 50%, look, what we've done here is a condition operator. What we've written here is a decision structure. You're making a decision about something. We've decided that this is less than 50. We've known and learned this. So, when we look here, if the student's grade is less than 50, what should happen? Let it do this. Look, this part is the if conditions. The code that will run if the condition is true is written here. Right here, system.out.println, student. Of course, the The student got it. So, what will happen if it's not? Teacher. Then you say else. If not, you run this. S.out. Student. Past. This is the basic principle. Now let's run this. Let's see how it works. Let's take a look. It said student passed. Nice. So, how did it work? Let's scan our code from top to bottom. Student grade 60. So I defined a variable. It's called student's grade. Integer type. I assigned the value 60 to it. What is the student's grade? 60. What if the student's grade was 60? If 60 is less than 50, he is not a junior manager. What will you do then? You will come here. If this part were true, this would have run. But it's not true. So it will come here. What will it do? The student passed. Nice. Okay, let's make a change here and run it. Result: the student failed. Let's evaluate. What is the student's grade? 40. If 40 is less than 50, is that correct? That's correct. So what will happen then? The student failed. That's it. So, when we want to direct the flow of the code or make it perform an operation in a different way, we choose this. This is the syntax, friends. So, what is the grammar like? If. Condition. So you write a rule like this. You can also do this. Of course. If I say so. If this is correct. Do this. Else. I can write like this. If it's truly true, then do it. If not. Do this. That's the thing. If it's true, let this place work. If it's not true, do this. Let him do this. This is how these friends are used. This has different usage syntaxes. If. You can use it on its own like this. There's nothing wrong with that. For example, if this is true, do it. If it's false, you don't need to do anything. For example, something like this is possible. Or also, that was another example I wrote above. For example, let's say if the condition is true, let it do this. Well, what if this isn't true, but that is, or that is, or that is? How do you mean, teacher? Aren't there just two options, true or false? If it's true, do this. If not, do that. Is there something else? Let's explain this with an example here. Let's say the student has a grade. Again, there's grade information here, right? There's grade information, but let's say what we want to do is this. For example, which letter grade does the student's score correspond to? What do you mean? I'm just making this up, okay? I'm going to make it up. Let's say if it's between 80 and 100, it's an A, okay? If it's between 50 and 79, it's a B. Let's say that's how it works. between 30 and. Don't exaggerate, like this. Let's say if it's between 30 and 49, it's a DD. If it's between 0 and 29, then it's E, E, S, S, S. Okay, so let's say it's like this, for example. Now, here, look at the student's grade in more than one different area. If you say the student's grade is greater than or equal to 80, let's say, and at the same time, if the student's grade is less than or equal to 100, I say. Now, the place I entered here is a range, friends. I'm expressing a range, so then I say S6 should be A. Alright, let's move on to the other case. There are 4 cases here, friends, so if this is true, do this. If not, do that. This won't work. So what should you do? You should use else if. You'll say, the student's grade is greater than or equal to 50, and at the same time, the student's grade is less than or equal to 79.2. You'll say, when that's the case, what will the grade be? It will be CC, friends. Again, you'll continue with else if. Then finally, you'll finish with else. Now I'm taking this from here. Who escaped here? It was between 30 and 49. This. When I write it, it becomes DD. When it is lower, it's SF. How? I was able to explain, so you can analyze all the situations. Like this. But there's too much of everything. If else, we should not continue. I'll explain their examples as we go along, friends. But the basic logic is like this. So, when we talk about how this structure is set up, how it's coded, in other words, you direct the decision structures like this. So, if this then do this, if that then do that, otherwise do this, you keep going like that. The if decision structure works like this, friends. Next, we'll continue the next structure.